So in today's web dev tip, we're going to take a look at the const keyword in JavaScript and how you can use it to define a variable with data that doesn't change over time. And we're going to take a look at a few examples because there are a few exceptions where this doesn't quite ring true. So let's have a look at the code that we've got on the page at the moment. We've got a variable called myscore, which is used inside of a function called printscore, which basically just prints out the variable and a message to the page. So the reason I've put this function in here is just to demonstrate that although the constant is defined outside of the function, then the actual variable can still be used inside of the function, so it's scoped to the actual block where it's defined. And to further illustrate that point, you can see here we've got another constant inside of the printscore function, and if we just try and log out that message to the console here, you'll see we get an error saying that that variable isn't defined because it's only available within the scope that it's been declared. So what's the main difference between const and the other ways of declaring variables in JavaScript using the let and var keywords? Well, first of all, the main reason you would use const is for data that doesn't change, and const will actually prevent you from making changes to this variable. So for example, if we say myscore minus equals 1, for example, you'll see we get an error in the console here saying that we can't actually change that constant variable by making any type of changes, whether that's taking 1 away or adding 1 to the score, or whether it's a case of just assigning it a completely new value. You can see any of those types of actions won't actually work. So it's important to know about const and to use it in your code because it provides a level of safety so that if you make a mistake in your code and try and reassign a value to a variable which should never change, then this will help prevent errors in your code later on, because as you see, you'll get an error straight away when you try and do that assignment. So as mentioned at the start of the tutorial, there are a few cases where this doesn't quite hold true. Whenever you try and reassign a value to a constant variable, you will get this error, but there are certain data types where it looks like you're reassigning a new value or you're making changes to the constant variable, but you're not actually doing that. So let's go through an example and clarify what I mean by that. So let's say you've got a constant myscore, which is actually an array of values. I should probably call it myscores, maybe that might make a bit more sense. So let's just change that there. And let's add a couple more values in here. So these might be the results from a particular grading or test that was taken. So if we try and assign a new array to this constant, to the myscores variable, we'll get the same error that we did before. So if we wanted to update the values that are inside of the variable, you'll see we still get that error, assignment to constant variable. We're not allowed to do that. But what we are allowed to do is actually make changes to the array itself. So if we wanted to make some changes to the data that's inside of the myscores array, we can actually do that. We can use the functions that are available to us on the array. For example, we can push some values onto it. Let's just push this first one on here, 90, and just remove the other ones from here. And you can see that the assignment error actually disappears for us now. And you can see we've got the values in the array has been updated as well. And that's because the array is a complex data type where what we're actually storing in the myscores variable is a reference to the array, so a pointer to where it is kept in memory, as opposed to the actual value itself. Which is why we're able to make changes to the array with the various methods that are available, because we're not actually updating the reference to where the array is stored, we're actually making changes to the data that's stored inside of that structure. So the same can be said for objects and other complex data types in JavaScript, and it can look a little bit confusing when you start using this because it looks like you're making changes when you shouldn't be allowed to, and it is something to bear in mind that even though you've got a complex type like an array or an object, you can still make changes to the underlying data structure. You just can't directly assign it a new value with the assignment operator, as we have done up here. So hopefully that's clarified a little bit about the const keyword and when you might use it in JavaScript. Make sure you stay tuned for more web dev tips.